Is the universe real? Our knowledge is based on the data from our five senses. Is what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell correct? What we see as solids are not solids at all. They are composed of atoms and subatomic particles that are 99.99% empty. Being empty space, why don't we see through solids or liquids? We are made up of atoms which are empty space. Isn't it absurd that we don't see through ourselves even though we are almost empty spaces? Still, objects feel hard or solid. Objects are made up of atoms with a nucleus and electrons surrounding it at a distance. They are mostly empty. Still, our fingers don't just pass through them, but they meet a hard surface. It may be feeling solid because of the energy of the dancing electrons as your fingers meet the object. The point is, your sense of touch is an illusion. You get a distorted feeling which has nothing to do with the reality. What we see need not be objectively true. Color does not exist in any literal sense. It is a brain construct. It is an illusion created by our brain. Black is a color your brain creates when it detects no light. The color of an object depends on the color of the light's source and which wavelengths of light the object reflects back to us. If a surface doesn't absorb any color, then all the colors are reflected and you see white. Everything we see is not real. When our eyes send information to our brains, they trick us into perceiving something that sometimes does not really exist, like a desert mirage. Light interacts with the electrons on the surface and we see the reflected light as the color of the object. However, some objects are transparent due to their ability to transfer energy given by radiation without absorbing them. Seeing is completely related to radiation. What we see is not the reality. Science tells us that our brains are making up a story about reality. We are not seeing the reality. What we see is distortion or illusions. Our perceptual reality, visual world, is constructed by our brain. There is a lot of visual illusion. It is important to understand we are not seeing reality, says neuroscientist Patrick Kavanagh. Then how do we know whether what we see is real? This is also applicable to the sense of hearing too. What you hear need not be objective always. Auditory hallucinations are common. Increasing scientific evidence over the past 2 decades suggests healthy people also hear imaginary sounds. Brain can make up noises. Hearing is unreliable. How do we believe what we perceive is true, as our sense of sight, touch, and hearing are not objective? Is not the outside world a brain creation different from the actual reality? Even René Descartes in the 17th century argued that sensory perception isn't true or objective. The senses sometimes deceive us, and hence he distrusted them. They do not reveal the true nature of substances according to him. Brain stitches the data together and it chooses what to concentrate on, ignoring many others. We don't perceive the real world. We perceive what our brains construct. The stories our brains tell us are influenced by us. Given the same physical objects, sense organs of all people do not respond equally to these stimuli, nor do their minds interpret sensory signals identically. Reality is merely an illusion. The visual cortex makes up to 30% of your brain, but the sense of touch and hearing take only 8 and 2 to 3% respectively. This is where sight gets its power to turn reality into an illusion. How information from our eyes and ears is processed by our neurons in the brain is inaccurate, says Ladin Shams, PhD, an associate professor of psychology. With all the above, there is no meaning in taking the extreme position that your world and the universe are a creation of your thoughts or that there is no physical universe out there. What our senses perceive as reality only exists as electromagnetic waves in our own minds. Some scientists maintain universe is an illusion, a mental construct. We are all the characters in this dream we call universe, constructed and animated by our brains. The world that one experiences is misleading as far as its true nature is concerned. The world is both real and unreal because it exists but is not what it appears to be. In Hinduism, the universe we live in is Maya, our illusion, not real. It is an illusion that we experience it as real just because it would be made of the same stuff that makes up a dream. There is no duality. The universe and we are one and the same. When we experience the universe, we experience the self itself as everything is one. According to cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman, world you see around is nothing but an illusion. He feels we are being tricked into believing our own reality and believes that what we are seeing around us is simply a facade that guides our way around a far more complex matrix. Hoffman believes that what neuroscientists say we have created in real time all the shapes, objects, colors, and motions that we see. It feels like we are just taking a snapshot of this room the way it is, but in fact, we are constructing everything that we see. The universe doesn't exist if we stop looking at it, he says. Galileo once wrote, I think that tastes, odors, colors, and so on reside in consciousness. Hence, if the living creatures were removed, all these qualities would be annihilated. Is reality then an illusion? Is it that the universe doesn't exist if we stop looking at it? In quantum mechanics, a particle's past behavior changes are based on what we see. The boundary between the world out there and our own subjective consciousness is blurred. At the quantum level, reality does not exist if you are not looking at it, said Associate Professor Andrew Truscott. Does the universe exist if you are not looking at it? This is a big question. Eminent physicist John Wheeler feels human consciousness shapes not only the present but the past as well. The world seems to be putting itself together piece by piece as if the mere act of watching has drawn them all into existence. The eminent physicist's gut feeling is that the very universe may be constantly emerging from a haze of possibility, that we inhabit a cosmos made real in part by our own observations. Our observations determine whether an atom behaves like a fluid, wave, or a hard particle, or which path it follows in traveling from one point to another. Our observations might actually contribute to the creation of a physical reality. We are not simply bystanders on a cosmic stage. We may be shapers and creators of it. The world is both real and unreal because it exists but is not what it appears to be according to Windy Doniger. The universe is real only when we perceive it. When our awareness ceases to exist, the universe ends as far as we are concerned. When the entire consciousness in the universe ceases to exist, there is no meaning in saying there is a universe out there. There are theories about the universe being an illusion or a hologram, and they are not all that new. Is this universe holographic? If it is so, then information that makes up what we perceive as a 3D reality is stored on a 2D surface, including time. This comes to mean everything we see and experience is merely an illusion. The 3D world we experience is encoded into the real 2D universe, like when you watch a 3D film on a 2D screen. Some scientists say the world that we live in is an energy hologram simulation. Space is an illusion. Since the 1990s, physicists have suggested our reality is like a 3D projection of a two-dimensional universe. Then the entire reality we have lived with and perceived becomes a repeated lie. At least the universe is not as we comprehend it. Further, the universe exists only when we perceive it. If the theory of the universe being a hologram is true, the whole thing we experience is an illusion. The perceived reality becomes a pure lie, a repeated pure lie. If the universe is an illusion, we who are infinitesimal bubbles forming and bursting out in a millisecond in the cosmic time scale are illusions too, and with our death, this illusion merges in the far greater illusion and eternal nothingness follows. The concepts of God, soul, heaven, hell all become meaningless. The meaning of life is we got a chance to pass this way, the why or how of which we don't understand. But if we can be happy at this moment, you can feel good.